We've got Megan Jedlicka here. She is a CSU Extension agent, and she deals with livestock. And she's going to be talking about basic ruminant nutrition and supplements. And so here's Megan.
All right, so this will probably be a review for most of you. Like Casey said, it's just basic nutrition and then looking at some supplementation because some of you are probably in that boat where you might be needing some supplements. So as an overview, just the nutrients, how the rumen works, and then the supplements. So for all animals, the essential nutrients, water, energy, protein, vitamins, and minerals, and these are all dependent on both the physiological state of the animal, so whether they're maintaining, growing, pregnant, or lactating, and also the environmental conditions, temperature, wind speed, rainfall. Water is the most important nutrient we need. As a rule of thumb, 1.5 gallons per 100 pounds of body weight. Obviously in harsh weather conditions, extreme heat, that can be double for nursing cows. And then energy. Energy is used to maintain the body temperature and also for muscle movement. It's needed constantly in the growing stage, and this chart here just kind of shows that. And the growing calves, this is based on a 1,200 pound mature weight or finishing weight with about 2.5 pound average daily gain, and then both the heifers and the beef cows are on a 1,100 pound mature weight. So you can just see there that the energy requirements are significantly higher for those growing calves, and then also for the heifers and cows, the last part of pregnancy and right after calving, higher energy requirements. Protein is just mainly used for muscle building, tissue building, and again you can see here that for the growing calves, protein is significantly higher. And this is on percent crude protein. You may see some protein measured in metabolizable protein. I think some dairies are getting into that a little bit more. The metabolizable protein is just takes into account the protein in the rumen for the rumen microorganisms in the feed and the undegraded protein, and just as a way to more efficiently feed those animals. So then your minerals, your macro minerals are minerals that are required in greater than 100 parts per million. They include calcium for bone formation, phosphorus for bone building and energy, salt to help maintain appetite and water consumption, magnesium, potassium, chlorine. And also remember here too that calcium and phosphorus should be provided in a 2-to-1 ratio. And then your microminerals are those that are required in amounts less than 100 parts per million. Just a few of those listed there. Okay, so now that was kind of an overview for nutrition for all animals. How the ruminants differ here is that the push the button. Is it? I think I pushed it. Okay, well.
We'll get it going here.
Okay. All right, so the rumen and the cow have a symbiotic relationship. I won't do that again, I promise. Where the microorganisms are provided an environment where they have their food in a temperature-regulated, oxygen-free environment that's necessary for their survival, and then the cows get to use the end products from the microbial digestion for energy and use those microorganisms as a protein source. And the rumen enables them to be able to consume lower quality feedstuffs that non-ruminants can't, and then still produce that high quality end product, the meat that you guys are producing there. So producers should really take advantage of this and feed for the microorganisms in the rumen. And then the role of microorganisms promotes fermentation and allows for the regurgitation of feed. The saliva that's produced in the rumen just helps neutralize the acids that are produced. So the picture here just shows the lining of the rumen. It's lined with papillae that helps increase the surface area of the rumen to enable them to absorb the nutrients, the volatile fatty acids that the cow needs that are produced during fermentation, and that's how the cow gets her energy, is from absorption through the rumen. A normal pH on a forage-based diet is normally between 6 and 6.4, and it's important to keep this in mind because a significant drop or time at a significant time period below that pH can damage those rumen papillae, which would make it so that then they aren't absorbing the nutrients that the cow needs. And some ways that this can happen is from feeding excessive grain or insufficient fiber, and the reason that happens is they don't have enough fiber, decreases their cud chewing and saliva production so that they can't neutralize those acids that are produced. You guys have probably heard of acidosis, and basically what that is just when those starch fermenting bacteria from the grain dominate the fermentation process and overwhelm the bacteria from the fiber fermenters. Okay, so the energy, again, the majority is derived from the volatile fatty acids. The microorganisms digest the energy in the forages, making it available to the animal. And then the protein, the majority of the protein can be derived from the microbes that pass out of the rumen. And generally the rumen bacteria contains about 60% protein, and that's a high quality protein. So you guys as feeders, your first goal of a cost-effective feeding program should be to feed for maximum microbial protein production, and then secondly, to make up for anything that wasn't met from the microbial fermentation. And like that last point there, often when the protein requirements of the rumen are fulfilled, then the cow's protein requirements are met as well. Okay, so supplementation, protein supplementation, is just to ensure the rumen microbes have enough nitrogen to digest the forage efficiently. It's been shown that forage intake declines rapidly as the forage crude protein falls below 7%. So sometimes this can happen if your forage is mature or dormant and the crude protein is inadequate. So I think one of the presentations earlier talked about the importance of testing and making sure you know what the content of the forage you're grazing has in it. And most commercial protein supplements range from 15 to 40%. This study here just shows an example of what supplementation can do. They were feeding a 42% supplement, which was 2 pounds a day, I believe is what they were doing. And you can just see here that there was a 31% increase in forage intake just from adding the supplement, which resulted in a 49% intake in total digestible nutrients, which is the estimate of energy. So if you were to supplement protein, you would be doing so to optimize the intake and digestion of the low quality forages. This here says should contain more than 30%. I think next here, I've got the handout Casey handed out. Well, I'm not quite to it, I guess, but it kind of steps you through like maybe some questions you should be asking about what your supplement should be. That handout just came from the Cattleman Producers Library. So you can take a look at that and just kind of adjust it to your operation. For energy supplementation, most energy can be managed with proper grazing in normal years. This year may not be ideal for that. And the main concern with energy supplements, one, the responses can be variable, and then also the starch content of the supplement. So when the starch supplements are fed, forage intake and digestion are often or can be suppressed. So you need to watch that. And high starch supplements include corn, grain, sorghum, wheat, barley. So your most desirable energy supplements are highly digestible fiber sources like soy hulls, wheat bran, wheat middlings, corn gluten. Okay, now it's to that decision guide that you should have. And I'm sure you guys know the types of the forms that supplements can come in, so just an overview. Probably the most common form of hand-fed dry would be the range cubes, and those supplements usually have the lowest variation in intake by the animal, and then if you're using self-feed range cubes, they usually have an intake limiter like salt in them. There's also the blocks, which are the dry ingredients pressed into a form. There's harder blocks for less intake, and softer blocks if you're desiring greater intake. The liquid feeds as another self-fed supplement. It's limited in the amount of ingredients that can be used. Most of them contain a high proportion of non-protein nitrogen and highly soluble natural proteins. There's also tubs, which are a self-fed supplement, again, usually made from molasses and cooked. And these ones can incorporate higher percent of dry ingredients than the liquid feeds can. And the intake from the tubs depends on the rate of softening. Okay, so when should you supplement grain? This greatly depends on the state of your operation and the stage of your cattle. Energy intake from forage is usually inadequate during increased times of increased nutrient needs, so late gestation, lactation, harsh weather, all of those things. And so then you might want to look at supplementing grain. Again, like I talked a little bit earlier, grains are high in starch, so you want to watch out for that high starch content there. And a lot of the grains will be processed, grinding, steam flake, dry roll, those in order to improve the starch availability and animal performance. And this chart here just shows the starch content of some of the cereal grains. You can see the sorghum and corn are higher, oats are at the bottom. So just as a kind of a wrap up, some benefits of protein supplementation would be that they can increase the forage intake and forage digestibility. Energy supplements are pretty cost effective if forage availability is low. The grain supplementation provides adequate energy during those periods of increased needs, so nutrient needs. And then just some possible disadvantages. The protein supplementation can be costly, as well as grain supplementation, especially if you're looking at further processing of that. And then energy supplementation, like I said, the responses are variable, and you need to be aware, watch for the substitution effect, which is just the high starch content can suppress the forage intake and digestion.
All right, well, thank you, Megan.